So when you see what it is, it's nothing complicated, but I think it's quite a useful system. It's been a nice lifestyle shot, lovely blue sky in Ebbw Vale. The sun always shines on a big landfill project that we did. HydraCX, a system we've been using for a number of years. We actually import it from America. The main reason being is that the Americans are basically far more into this type of work than we are in the UK. Typical hydro seeding in the UK is simply firing out a bit of seed with a bit of water, maybe a bit of nutrients. But in America, it's a huge industry where they're putting very thick mulches down on the ground instead of erosion blankets. Do I just press that? Yes. All right, okay. So David's been talking, and most of the schemes that have been discussed have always been about fluvial processes. With HydraCX, it's simply for rain erosion, so fluvial scenarios, so rain erosion typically rather than sort of channels. We don't use it for channels because it would get washed out. But where we're using it is more for bank protection and vegetation establishment. So yes, your sort of old style way of doing it and still done today is a series of different materials. So we go from sort of open jute netting, the cheapest sort of form, to biodegradable blankets. And then this shocker here is on the M25, where the local contractor bought the cheapest, nastiest bit of plastic matting he could find, and he's rolled it over a fairly small embankment. It's so dense, this stuff, 6 months later nothing had grown through it. It's fairly appalling. So what we want to do is try and get away from having to use rolled erosion products when you don't always need to use them. So hence the idea of using this HydraCX. So basically, what is it? I came back from America. We went over the first time with a sample. I got stopped by the guys with their dogs and everything. So I was carrying a bit of this stuff in my pocket because it doesn't look like something you could smoke rather than spray. But basically, the primary fibre is straw. So straw is quite pulpy and it has a moisture holding capability. And what it also does is when it's down on the ground, it just gives a little protection for that little seedling, nice little sort of comfy little bed for it to sort of be happy and then grow in the future. So it's just there also as a visual effect as well, apart from the mulch. The secondary fibre within the HydraCX is cotton, and cotton's very absorbent. It's also is used for interlocking this mulch as well, and keeping that the seedlings in place when you get sort of the heavy rain. The cotton is it comes from Alabama. It's recycled cotton plant material, and it's obviously a natural fibre, so it does retain the water very well. The third ingredient is tachyphyllene polymer. So that's basically the glue. So if you place this on the ground, the first heavy rainfall is going to wash out. So the only way we can stop that is by using these polymers to actually glue it together so that it can take decent rain for the event. There's a various compost analysis that's been done. There's been quite a lot of research on this in the States, like we're doing any other country or most countries. A lot of analysis on toxicity to make sure that it's a perfectly good product. It has the NPK, so natural, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, reasonable amount within it naturally, and also the big thing, because there's a lot of other type of mulches on the marketplace, but a lot of them are either wood or paper based, and a lot of them, when they break down, they take a lot of nitrogen from the soils. With HydraCX, when it actually breaks down over a period of maybe 12 months, when it decomposes, it actually leaves a bit of nitrogen for the plants, and it's quite a low CN ratio. There's been a lot of research as well done on artificial rainfall events, just to see basically what rainfall events this product can take, and it's been I think in excess of 4 or 5 inches rainfall event, very high, very higher than we typically would get in the UK. And I think really with any of these systems, they need a certain amount of testing before you can put them in the marketplace. So we have the benefit of all this sort of American research that we can use now in the UK ourselves. So the very first time we brought it over was in August 2008. So it basically comes in over in bale form. We did a trial. We rang up Network Rail and said, look, we've got this product, we believe it could be really good for rail projects where maybe you've got very poor ground or you just want to get in there and get some rapid vegetation. So we did a trial for them on some embankments, onto some embankment fill with standard HydraCX and then the HydraCX system. This is the embankment fill here. It's got quite a lot of fine content, but there's no topsoil. So in the past, Network Rail would come in on anywhere where they had no topsoil, they'd have to import it. But basically, we sprayed it with the HydraCX. You can see how it's grown within 2 months. It's grown extremely well. And where further on with the standard HydraCX was done, it was virtually next to nothing in terms of growth. So it shows its effectiveness against HydraCX. With Network Rail, then they took it on board. The Network Rail, they tend to, when you prove something, they tend to use it time and time again. Trouble is, the engineers initially didn't quite get it, so they were specifying it together with various forms of three-dimensional mats. Trouble is with that, this is above a regular tunnel here, we were spraying it on top and the mulch is so thick it wasn't getting through the mat. We actually told them, look, get rid of this, you don't need it. We'll spray it directly onto the slope with the HydraCX, 100% biodegradable, you don't need to roll out of plastic matting. So over time, it's taken a bit of time, but over time they're starting to get that, and we're going in and doing it directly onto the ground. So I'll give you a couple of examples. This is a bit of a shocker, the first one, in terms of health and safety, but it is in America, not here. The boys, they're working away on a very steep slope. They've got the biodegradable blanket above the slope, and then on the reinforced soil element, they've gone in there and sprayed it with the HydraCX. The difference in growth rate is, I say, quite phenomenal. You've got the standard blanket above, it's growing, but not that great. The one below, it's with the HydraCX, it's come on very, very quick. So I would say, we sell biodegradable blankets, obviously we sell permanent systems, but in many sort of slope situations when you haven't got any sort of concentrated flow, is definitely an option worth considering. Our first big job then was in Danalan, Pontypridd, with Rhondda Borough Council. It's a huge, huge slip, 8,000 tonne of material. Tensar had to be involved to look at reinstating the slip. So there you can see the sort of scale of it at the moment. It came right down. I think the whole material is all, it's like a sort of fill material, which is actually, what's the word? It's got lots of nasty metals and something, I can't think of the word. Anyway, can't think. But it's basically very bad material, but what they wanted to do is still use that existing material on site. So it was 36-degree slopes with geogrids, 40 metre length slope altogether. The initial option was to look at a cellular confinement system to retain 200 mil of soil, because they had to, the ground below, which they reused, was so full of contaminants, that's the word, that they needed a 200 mil layer of soil over the top. So rather than a soil cell system in this situation, we just used a series of faggot bundles up the slope, and then the entire slope then was filled with soil. After that, Rhondda Borough Council were just saying, can we roll out one of your mats over the surface to prevent any erosion? We said, look, we've got this new system, HydraCX, we'll give it a go, and hopefully this will work. So we used a local contractor that did it for us. We had no machine at the time, and they sprayed the entire slope for us. First of all, when we started using the product, it wasn't particularly, because in America they have great big massive machines, they fire it out, and the machines are 3 times the size of these things, and so the material was quite rough. And we found when we first did it, it kept blocking our machine. So most of the time the guys were taking their machine apart rather than spraying the slope. It was a bit of a nightmare. They had to recalibrate their centrifugal pump, but over time, over the years, they've been refining the product. So it's far less, before we had big lumps of straw like this, big chunks of cotton. Now they've chopped it up a lot neater, and it's far easier to apply. But that's basically what it looks like when it goes down on the ground, sprayed onto the surface. This was, we had a 3-inch rainfall event, some very, very high downpours during the time this is put down. It's a slope itself, but then again, this is on the flat area where they put some standard HydraCX down. The difference between the standard HydraCX and the HydraCX is, again, is very, very extreme. When we just put a lot of clovers in at the time, leguminous species just want something to grow very quickly, and so it's a very bright, green slope that stands out. But after time, that all died back, and natural species came through. And now, if you saw the slope, you wouldn't know it'd been treated. What I would say, with any large slope area, we're doing a huge job at the moment, big landfill site, great big long slopes, is it's not a bad idea to, you've got a lot of sheet flow, you've got concentrated flows in some areas, so maybe break up that surface with using things like sediment stops, for example. So you can place these down maybe within a certain spacing down the slope, maybe 10 metres or so, just to break up that flow, because HydraCX alone may not prevent that erosion where you've got little gullies forming. So this sort of option could be good to use in conjunction with the HydraCX. Fully biodegradable as well, so you just leave them in place. So I'll give you some examples of works that we've done. Soil nailed slopes, as I say, network rail in the past. Would do soil nailing with products such as Magma R, which is extruded black plastic, which is sort of bonded onto an open rock netting. It's about, I don't know, £10 a square metre or more, and it's not always successful when you haven't got very good ground contact. So now network rail are just using standard rock netting, which is maybe £2.50 a square metre, and we're coming in, say, I don't know, £2 a square metre with HydraCX and spraying it directly through that rock netting. So we're saving a load of money, plus we're not putting plastic down. So it's a winner in that sense, and we do many schemes with that. The same about Magma R earlier, this is a classic example. It's not just Magma R, it's the same with any of our turf reinforcement mats. If you've got rock outcrops or a tree trunk sticking out, it tents over the surface, the geotextile, so it's maybe that far off the ground, so nothing's growing there. The only areas where it is growing is where it's in direct contact with the soil. So by simply using that open rock netting structure without the plastic and spraying the HydraCX through, it doesn't matter if you've got loads of undulations on the surface, as it shows here. So there's no plastic underneath, doesn't matter if it's stones there, and just zap it right through and get into the nooks and crannies. Soil cell applications, you see this sometimes on motorways. This is a scheme on a rail project again, where there's a nailed embankment. Then they had to cover it because it was quite a large ballast stone. So they used a cell system. But the trouble with cell systems is you have to have light friable topsoil, which is not the easiest anyway to fill. But when you do fill it, you tend to find the soil then slumps within it. So if you try rolling out a mat over the top of that, again, you've got very little ground contact and you tend to find very sporadic growth. But we basically came along to spray it directly onto the cells themselves, as you can see. And in no time at all, it's literally within months, the whole lot was covered. We're actually getting involved now in zero soil applications, which is got a number of quite significant projects. This first one I'm going to show you is just, I never discussed it first of all after 3 years because I wasn't 100% sure if it would work. This is the M25 junction 18. We were working with Skanska at the time. Is that right, Skanska? Alphabetically, yes. And they were working with, I think it was Atkins actually, yeah. And some of the guys there at Atkins, on this area, there was about 8,000 square metres, and the landscape team wanted topsoil brought in, like a cell system for this 1-in-1 crushed brick slope. And we were, I was fairly convinced that we could get it to vegetate without that. But I couldn't give any guarantees, so we ended up doing this as almost like a trial area, because it was at the back of the M25, the actual M25 is over the other side. There's an aqua company, a water company behind. So we sprayed it in August. You can see that's basically what it is. It's 100% brick, crushed brick. But because it had quite a good fine content, I thought we could get something to get on there. So August installation, which is not ideal time of year to be doing this, it was very, very dry. But by the end of September, we got some good growth. But then I was thinking, people were saying it's all very well, it's green now, is it going to die off in a few months? No, could happen. But my sort of feeling on this is if you can aggressively establish something, get something to grow in there, that can almost act like a nurse crop, and then over time other species will come through. So we also put things like mycorrhizal fungi in there, which helps with sort of fine root establishment. And so I went back to site over the years before I case studied it, because to make sure it definitely worked, otherwise we'd have a real egg on our face. So this is, I think that was end of September, we say. This one here, this one is in 2011. So back in 2010 when we did it, May 2011 is a little bit more sporadic, but I went back then in 2013, and the entire slope is 100% vegetated. It's actually very much lusher, thicker growth than I was sort of expecting, to be honest. So it shows that we can get away with using imported topsoil in a lot of situations. An example of that actually is on the A11 as you drive up here. We did quite a few kilometres of drainage channel where Balfour Beatty were working on this area. And this is all said as like slip form concrete. There's aquifers, ground water underneath. So they had to line the whole channel with an impermeable layer. And I think they put down topsoils or sandy soils, which is in the area. But the first floods came along and washed it all out. So they had to leave the liner and then bring in some imported type 1. They don't want any rutting within the channel. So they were hoping to try and vegetate this type 1 material. So we sprayed the HydraCX down on the type 1, but then we rolled a blanket out over the top, because if there were flowing vents, we didn't want the HydraCX washing off. So that scheme now, you can see it when you drive along, it's working well. It's nicely vegetated. If anything, it gets a bit more moisture there, which is good, so rather than a steep slope. So just the last couple of slides, just to say, just current projects we're on board with at the moment, sort of see the scale we're getting to do. This is the Yebble Vale site. We did it a few years back, the first phase. This is the second phase now, 60,000 square metres. Original design was for jute netting over the whole area, but you've got to physically get there and roll it out, which is a bit of a hassle, and pin it in place. So we're literally getting on site and spraying it on. We've got another 40,000 square metres to do. This was taken a few months after we put it down. This is real engineered, very poor ground, and we're getting some really nice vegetation take there, even though it's been, up until recently, a very, very dry summer. Well, I will say, on this scheme, there was an area where the guys have redone the access road, and they'd sort of built it up without a cut-off drain, and there's an area where all the rain is coming off the ground and just concentrated in one flow. So it's coming down, it's cutting actually down through the bank. So it's not magic, HydraCX. It does work very well, but it's like anything else. You've got to, you do need a cut-off drain there to prevent that sort of concentrated flow. Otherwise, you will get gullying effect take place. So we're going to have to go in, and they are going to have to go in and reinstate them. We're doing some trials at the moment with Costain on the heads of the valleys, looking at various sediment control techniques instead of the silt fencing. But this is an area where we sprayed with the HydraCX, and you can see very rough ground, lots of branches sticking out and lots of undulations. But we can spray it directly on there, prevent the soil erosion, and it doesn't matter, the surface is undulated. So just to sum it all up, no soil loss under heavy rain. Well, little soil loss under heavy rain. Heavy rain may be a little bit more accurate, but regular surfaces is definitely an advantage when you can spray it through. You've got no tenting effect. We can definitely replace geotextiles on a lot of these steep slopes, like we're doing there on the right, or we can use the geotextiles. So if you need that permanent reinforcement, then Mr. B, we can put the HydraCX down first and then the matting over the top. Faster germination is definitely, I found it compared to standard seeding, and then we can also replace or reduce the need for topsoil. Health and safety issues, there aren't any, in the sense that we can spray from the ground often. On a steep slope like this, you won't have to worry about actually getting onto the slope itself. And there are a lot of testing that has been done in terms of erosion and growth and toxicity issues. So, thank you very much for listening.